Tonight on Cys Eyes on the Skies.
We've had blizzard conditions across the state today. Now the extreme cold is setting in. I'll tell you how low temperatures will go and if we'll have more snow in the forecast.
Plus, Trey also has your national forecast. All that and much more as this Thursday, February 4th edition of Cys Eyes on the Skies starts right now.
Live from Studio 171 in Ames, Iowa, the Iowa State Meteorology Department team of meteorologists brings you the latest weather from around the country and out your front door. Iowa State's longest running television program and the only live weather broadcast on campus starts right now. This is Cys Eyes on the Skies.
Now it's time for today's weather story. On this date in 1987, strong southerly winds ahead of a cold front brought unseasonably warm temperatures to most of Iowa, with many stations south of I-80 climbing into the 60s and many breaking daily records, including Des Moines, where the temperature peaked at 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Other reported high temperatures included 65 degrees Fahrenheit at Indianola and Winterset and 64 degrees Fahrenheit at Greenfield and Ottumwa. Now, let's take a look at your national forecast with Trey.
Let's take a look now at our satellite and radar picture right now across the nation this evening. We're going to begin by looking here at the mid-Mississippi River Valley. This is where we have the most active weather with a very potent storm system moving through the upper Midwest and into the Great Lakes states. That system has been responsible for blowing snow, blizzard conditions here across Iowa today, and so there's been a lot of issues in those locations. And then this system will ultimately begin to move off towards the east as we get into the day tomorrow, affecting areas like the East Coast. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. Now let's take a look at the current weather analysis here this evening. We're going to go from coast to coast here. Beginning at the West Coast, we've got high pressure in control right now across the Great Basin of Nevada, and that is keeping surrounding regions precipitation-free and temperatures there fairly comfortable as well. We look into the middle part of the nation there, very wound-up area of low pressure right now, currently centered over south-central Wisconsin with trailing frontal boundaries, and then with all that cold air wrapping in around the backside of that low pressure, we've seen accumulating snow and then notice there the tight pressure gradient. That is an indication that we've got very strong winds as well. So blizzard conditions here this evening across portions of Iowa, and then also that is extending into portions of Wisconsin as well. And then we've got showers down into the mid-south trailing along that frontal boundary. Across the East Coast this evening, fairly calm conditions there. But this system that we are looking at over the Great Lakes in the mid-south, that will ultimately begin to push to the east as we get into the day tomorrow, and then bring more shower chances for areas like along the I-95 corridor. Here's a look now at the watches and warnings, and you can clearly see a very busy map this evening for areas up across the upper Midwest. We've still got blizzard warnings in effect for north-central Iowa, and then winter storm warnings extending into northern Illinois and Wisconsin as well. All of that will begin to move off towards the east, and then we've also got more winter storm watches and warnings in place across portions of Montana there as well, with another system that will be coming in right behind this one. But for the southern half of the nation, really no watches or warnings to speak of this evening. Here's a look at the water vapor imagery here across the U.S. this evening. You can see that very well organized storm system that will push off to the east as we get into the day tomorrow, affecting the East Coast. We've got a break in between that here for areas across the central part of the nation, and then we've got our next weather system currently moving in to the Pacific Northwest and into the northern Rockies. You can see here, as I overlay the jet stream pattern here, the pattern is getting ready to set up as one that is going to be favorable for very cold weather here across the northern plains and into the upper Midwest as we get into the next several days. We've got high pressure in the North Pacific and then high pressure in the upper levels that is building off the East Coast in the Atlantic. And so these two high pressure systems are allowing a very deep trough to form in between that, and so that is allowing some very cold air to work its way down to the south. You can see that here on the upper atmosphere as I let this loop through over the next several days here. We've got this trough that's just very persistent here across the northern plains, and so with that, very cold air is going to be associated with that. As we look at the FUTURECAST, we watch that first system that we've been talking about. That moves to the East Coast tomorrow with rain along the I-95 corridor extending all the way down to the southeast. Clearing conditions across the central part of the nation, and then we've got snow with our next weather system coming into the Intermountain West. Then as we get into the evening hours tomorrow, that system moves off the east coast with some scattered showers trailing along the frontal boundary down to the southeast. And then we are looking at increasing clouds and then some snow moving into the high plains as we get into tomorrow evening. And then after that, on Saturday, that system ejects from the high plains, moves into the central U.S. with new areas of snow breaking out from Kansas back up into Iowa. And then we've got trailing showers located down into the southeast with a frontal boundary. And then those showers down in the southeast will continue as we get into the day on Sunday. Forecast highs for tomorrow, we've got a very cold day in store for areas up to the north, but look at Florida down there, 77 in Miami. Speaking of Florida, there's a very big game going on this week, the Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be at home playing against Kansas City, and game forecast does look pretty good. A few clouds with temperatures in the mid-60s. Here's my select city forecast for New York. Over the next several days, we're going to see temperatures ultimately begin to take a dive as we get into the latter part of this weekend, and then that cold air will make its way in as we get into the early part of next week, with a secondary shot of cold air arriving for the middle of next week.
Thanks, Trey. Now it's time for tonight's trivia question. What is the record snowfall in 24 hours in the state of Iowa? Is it A, 24 inches, B, 26 inches, C, 36 inches, or D, 40 inches? We'll have your answer coming right up, but now here's Trey with a look at your eye.
Welcome back to Cys Eyes on the Skies. It has been quite an active day here across central Iowa. We've had blizzard conditions. We've had a big pile up on I-80 east of Des Moines and a lot of bad weather for most of the day today, but things are slowly starting to calm down this evening, although much colder air is beginning to filter in as well. Here's a look at the current conditions right now in Ames. We have temperatures falling back into the mid-teens under clear skies. Winds are out of the west-northwest at 20 to 25 miles per hour, but those winds will begin to decrease as we get into the evening and overnight hours as that area of low pressure begins to move away from the state and high pressure begins to come in. Weather headlines for this evening: we have improving travel for overnight tonight, but that will be followed by a prolonged cold event. And when I say cold, it's going to be cold for several days here in the near future, and then we also have chances of snow to accompany that cold. I'll show you when here in just a second. A look at temperatures right now across the state. We've got temperatures in the teens area-wide here with some of the colder readings up to the north. And you can see all that cold air basically funneling in behind that big storm system that affected the state today. Visibility has been improving. We have visibility 9 to 10 statute miles for areas west of I-35, so that's pretty much standard. Still some areas of blowing snow and reduced visibility out to the east, so just kind of hold off on the travel there. Let those winds begin to settle down and let the plow crews get out, and things will ultimately get better as we get into the day tomorrow. Look at wind chills across the state right now. It is bone chilling cold, especially up to the northeast. Look at those wind chill values below zero. Still a little bit better for areas off to the southwest, but it's all relative. Either way, it's just going to be cold, and we're going to see these wind chill values go even lower than that. As we get into the morning hours tomorrow, we've got wind chill values ranging from 0 to -15 across the state. And then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, really just not much improvement. And then you can see that is the case even as we get into the day on Saturday, even colder for Saturday morning. And then more cold air continues to filter in as we get into early next week, and things are just looking just cold even beyond Saturday and for several days as we get into next week. Look at the current weather analysis right now. We've got this big storm system, this area of low pressure right now centered over south central Wisconsin. As that begins to push off towards the east over the next several days, conditions will get better. The winds will begin to settle down and skies will also clear. Tomorrow looks to be a fairly decent day with lighter winds. We will have some intervals of clouds. Notice off to the west, so we have our next storm system coming in. That will arrive as we get into the day on Saturday, bringing more snow, especially for areas across central and southern Iowa. That is one system, and there will be several more as well. We'll have a chance of snow on Sunday, and then even on Monday as well. When you add all these snowfall events that we have coming up in the near future through Monday afternoon, anywhere from 1 to 2 inches up to the north, and then south of I-80, where we will likely see some of the heavier snowfall amounts pick up, 4 to 6 inches is likely. So we'll continue to watch that very closely as we get into this weekend. Overnight tonight, a low of 10 with blowing snow that will eventually be clearing. Winds out of the west-northwest at 25 miles per hour, diminishing to 15 miles per hour. As we get into the day on Friday, a high temperature of 18 degrees with intervals of clouds, winds out of the west-northwest at 15 to 25 miles per hour. The week ahead here across the Ames area, look at all this cold air that will be filtering in. High temperatures in the single digits all through the weekend, and as we get into early next week with lows well below zero. And I'm looking ahead at some of the forecast data here. It looks like we will be dealing with below zero wind chills even beyond this forecast, likely well into next weekend, with high temperatures below freezing for the foreseeable future.
Now let's take one final look at tonight's trivia question. What is the highest amount of snowfall recorded in Iowa in 24 hours? The correct answer is A, 24 inches. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but just think about it. That is 1 inch per hour for an entire day. So it's 24 inches, just a lot of snow if you come to think about it, in just 24 hours. That happened back in 1918. Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of Cys Eyes in the Skies. Please be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And you can find every show on YouTube under our Cys Eyes channel. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hope to see you next Tuesday.